living longer, living healthier, living better than ever before. Welcome to Mountain Pacific's Healthy Living for Life, a weekly series that gives you the information, education, and expert insight you need to become an active participant in today's ever-changing healthcare climate. Here now is today's program host.
1 in 6 children has a mental, behavioral, or developmental disorder. These conditions affect how children learn, behave, and manage emotions, often making it difficult to simply get through the day. Welcome to Healthy Living for Life, a show dedicated to helping you do just that. I'm Janet Whitmoyer, your host today. We will talk about behavioral health services and treatment that are helping kids manage conditions and live fulfilling lives. Stay tuned. Welcome back. First up, we're talking with Paige Aguilar, a teen who receives services from Shodare Children's Hospital. Thanks so much for being with us, Paige. So let's start off with you just telling us a little bit about yourself. How old are you and what grade are you in at school?
I'm 15 and I'm a sophomore at Helena High School.
At Helena High School, great. So can you tell us a little bit about the condition that affects you, where you ended up going to Shodare for help?
I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 and 2.
Okay, and so can you tell us about how you were feeling or how you were diagnosed and how old were you when that happened?
I was 14.
Okay, and what kinds of things did you notice were happening with you that made you feel that something wasn't right?
I was always running away and doing drugs and drinking.
Okay, and so you knew something that wasn't right,
Yeah.
but you just didn't know what it was, and you knew you needed to get help. Did you tell your parents, or?
They knew.
Okay.
I just didn't really talk to them about it.
Okay, so you had talked to them, and so what happened? When you talked to them, what did they do, or what was the first thing that happened to you?
They took me to St. Peter's Hospital to get evaluated.
Okay, and then at St. Peter's, is that where they decided that you needed to have some more specialized help and
Yeah.
sent you to
Shodare.
Shodare? And so you actually lived at Shodare for a period of time?
For 2 months.
For 2 months. So what types of things, the type of therapy did you have when you were at Shodare?
There was music therapy, art therapy, addiction therapy,
Okay.
sports therapy.
Okay, so of those types of therapies, I'm sure some you liked better or you felt worked better for you than
Yeah.
others. What were some of the types of therapy that worked well for you?
Art therapy and sports therapy for sure.
Okay, so that you could actually do art and do some sports, and that was able to help you
Yeah.
with your mental health. Okay, perfect. And what were some of the things that you just didn't seem to connect with or didn't seem to work for you?
I just didn't really like music. Or socializing.
Socializing was difficult for
Yeah.
you. Okay. So in addition to those types of therapies, did you receive any type of medication?
I was put on Seroquel and Lamictal.
Okay, and has that worked out for you and you've been okay with that, or have they had to adjust different types of medications?
It worked, yes.
It works pretty good for you?
It stables out my mood. But,
Does it? Okay, great.
But yeah, I'm getting taken off of Seroquel.
Okay. So what other kinds of supports or therapies beyond medication and the art therapy and the sports therapy have you found that have been helpful to you?
An outpatient art group at Shodare and boxing.
Okay. Boxing. Awesome. That's really good. So for other kids that may be experiencing some of the same types of things that you were going through, what would you tell them, what would be your advice to them as far as getting help?
To take time.
Take time?
To work through it and talk about it. Mm-hmm. It'll eventually get better.
Okay. And also maybe for their parents, I'm sure your parents were really concerned about you, when you said you were running away and all that. Do you have any thoughts that you could share for parents that might, that they might be able to do some things to help their kids?
They have to give their kids space.
Okay.
Being a helicopter parent is not the right thing to do.
Okay.
I get they care about them, but it just stresses out kids more.
Okay. So that's what your parents were able to do for you, and that really helped.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I also wanted to talk to you about the stigma. You've probably heard of that, that surrounds both mental and behavioral health. When you were at Helena High or even earlier, do you feel like you were treated any differently, or even now after you've been diagnosed, treated any differently because of your diagnosis?
No.
Okay.
Most of my friends have gone through the same stuff I have.
Okay.
So they're always really welcoming about it.
Okay, so you're able to talk to a lot of different kids at school. And how about the school, like your teachers or counselors? Are you able to get help from them, or are they involved in your care or your therapy at all at school?
Yeah, they are. They've been really helpful.
Okay.
I can talk to almost all of my teachers.
Okay, that's awesome. So this is a fairly new thing. You've been going through it for a year, but you have that year of experience. Do you have any other advice or anything that you'd like to that for people to know, especially for kids that are going through such difficult times and through these experiences? What would you like for people to know?
You're not an issue. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's trauma.
It's trauma, and you can be helped.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you can work through it, and eventually you won't feel the way you do now.
That's awesome. Well, Paige, I'd love to talk more with you. We're about out of time, and I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story. It took a lot of courage for you to do that, so thanks for coming and being with us. Okay. Coming up next, we'll be talking with representatives from 2 organizations that provide child and adolescent psychiatry, as well as many other services. Stay with us. Welcome back. Joining me now is Kimberly Gardner, the clinical director at Intermountain, and Tricia Ayers, primary therapist and former director of social services at Chaudere. Thanks to both of you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's start off by having you tell us a little bit more about yourself and the organizations that you represent. So Kimberly, would you like to start?
Sure. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, LCSW, and a licensed addiction counselor, and I'm clinical director at Intermountain. So in my role, then, I provide clinical oversight to all of the services that we provide and guidance whenever we are developing a new program when there's a new need in Montana. So we have 31 sites around the state. We have 2 residential programs, one here in Helena with a integrated private school and a therapeutic residential center in Kalispell, and 2 mental health programs, clinics, one here in Helena, one in Kalispell. And then locally, we provide psychiatric medication management, neuropsychological evaluations, occupational therapy, in-home services for case management and family work, and also school-based services. And we also collaborate with some of the community health clinics around to partner with them to provide some adolescent and child mental health support services in their particular clinics. And last, we have an education wing that helps put on conferences and educational presentations about complex trauma, adverse childhood experiences, and trying to promote healthy communities so that they can be available to take care of kids and families better.
Okay, perfect. So Tricia, can you share with us about yourself and Chaudere?
Sure. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor, so an LCPC, and I'm also a licensed addictions counselor. And our organization is a nonprofit organization. We were established in 1896 originally as an orphan, a home for orphan children. And then we've evolved into several different things over time. At one point we were a medical facility for treating children with polio. And then we were the first facility in the state of Montana to have a medical genetics department. And just in the last 3 years, we have gone through a lot of changes and evolved to meet the needs of Montana kids. So we utilize a trauma-informed philosophy at Chaudere. Specifically, we use the sanctuary model, and so we are in the process of becoming a sanctuary certified hospital. So we're very excited about that. Our expansion over the last couple of years has allowed us to provide basically every level of care for our kids that we treat. Specifically, we focus on treating Montana kids and Montana families. So right now we have 2 developmentally specific acute units. So we have one wing that treats younger children, and then we have one unit who treats middle school and high school aged students on that acute unit.
Okay.
So those kids are in crisis. So we also have 2 residential treatment units for our kids, one middle school unit and one high school unit. We also have a day treatment program. We have 2 therapeutic group homes. We have a medical genetics department, like I already said, and we also recently opened our outpatient services clinic, which we're really excited about.
Cool.
So we have access to a wide variety of things, such as occupational therapists, speech therapists, medication management, telepsychiatry, and a registered dietitian if we need it too. So we can offer a lot of things.
Perfect. A couple of very comprehensive programs we have here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get started with the basics of what type of mental and behavioral illnesses do you see as common with kids? And I'm going to ask you that question,
Sure.
Kimberly.
I think first it's really helpful to understand how mental health has evolved over the last decade, and in understanding that mental health, emotional distress, and behavioral health all refer to the same dynamic and the same situation. So sometimes we'll hear emotional distress or mental illness, sometimes we'll hear behavioral health. It's all the same. So what we know is that kids and teens are typically referred after they've had some difficulty managing their mood and their behaviors at home or school, and they're no longer responding very well to adult care and control. And when that presents itself, we have to look back a little bit and see and understand what has actually occurred in this child's experience and how this family has tried to manage it. So often when kids have experienced some intense or chronic complex trauma or something highly stressful or fearful, then they're going to have an experience that we refer to as adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. And when that is present, then those youngsters or teens will be expressing it behaviorally, because all behavior is purposeful and it's expressed to meet a need. So when we look at those dynamics when youngsters are referred to us, then typically we're going to see a high level of post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety and depression. And sometimes we'll see some self-harming behaviors such as cutting or eating disorders or substance use. And then there's a number of youngsters that we work with that have not necessarily experienced trauma or difficulties or challenge, but it's more organically based, such as autism or bipolar disorder. So those are the common ones that we see, although there are some unique outliers as well. And our job is to understand what that youngster is trying to express through their behavior and their emotional distress, and then how can we meet that at the level that will heal that the best, while the entire time working with a team and the prescribers.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to need to take a break right now, so we'll come back and talk to you a little bit more. Coming up next, we'll talk more with Kimberly and Tricia about the types of treatment and how children get the help and support they need. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking with Kimberly Gardner from Intermountain and Tricia Ayers from Chaudere about mental and behavioral health in children and adolescents. Thanks again for both of you being here. Now, Tricia, I want to go to you. So it seems like we hear a lot about mental health issues, more so than we used to. Can you tell us why that is?
Well, I think for our state of Montana in 2018, we had the highest suicide rate in the nation. And so I think that we have spent a lot of time and energy as a community of Montana, really trying to address that mental health crisis that our children and our families are in. So I think we're just openly talking about it more. I think we're having those conversations. People are more comfortable bringing it up with their kids. It's talked a lot about in schools with kids early on. And so I think people are just finding a comfort level in discussing a really difficult topic.
Okay.
Nationally, I think, before Kimberly mentioned the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, and I think that's really brought to the forefront the impact of childhood trauma and how it can really affect a person across their lifetime. And so I just think it's something that we are all aware of nationally. We know the effects, we have the research now, and so people are really looking at assessing it earlier on and starting those conversations early.
And so following with that, can you tell us, basically what causes mental illness in children?
Well, there isn't any one specific thing you can say that causes mental illness or mental disorders in children and in families. I think it's a lot of things. We talk a lot about risk factors. So, there's a lot of different risk factors that might increase the probability that you might develop a mental disorder, but that doesn't mean that that's going to happen. There are also protective factors that come into play culturally within families that can decrease the risk of a child really developing a disorder if all of those risk factors are met. And so, it's a combination of things. It's biological, it's, within your family, if you have a family history. Culturally, there can components that can contribute to that, as well as issues within the community. So it's a wide variety of things that contribute to that.
Okay, great. Kimberly, I want to come to you and talk about the challenges of kids getting treatment. There's a lot of them. Can you kind of explain some of those challenges and what you do at Intermountain that addresses those needs?
Sure. I think it's very complex. As Tricia said, there are many factors that inform families or inform communities about what kids and teens and families need. And so part of the barriers or the difficulties have to do with stigma, for one. So I think there's a lot of misperceptions in our communities and families about what are the underpinnings of mental illness or addiction and what does it look like in children. So if children are exposed to adults who are primarily coping with managing their life distress with alcohol or substances, then that limits the ability for that youngster to develop some healthy life coping skills. Also, there is a shortage of providers, and it's sometimes very difficult to find a provider or therapist or psychiatrist that is trained in adolescent and child brain development and what the impact of certain life experiences have on that child and on that family. So while some things are identified, it can be difficult to connect exactly to the right type of provider. And so we're hoping that telehealth opportunities in the state and recruiting efforts are going to help make more services available, especially to those folks that are in more remote areas or where there is a serious lack of providers that are available to them. We're also working very hard with schools and communities to create trauma-informed cultures and trauma-responsive cultures in schools and support them in recognizing or identifying screening early so that we can recognize when a youngster or family needs support before a major mental illness is developed. And also working with communities to develop Elevate Montana affiliates, which is a movement across the state to infuse communities with ACE trainings and trauma-informed, trauma-responsive services, but also resiliency factors. What do families and kids need that are good buffers and good prevention efforts to prevent mental illness? So we're doing that across all areas and also partnering with wherever children are. So we have school-based mental health programs so that the youngsters can get treatment there at the school and the parents don't have to take time away from school, from their work, and the kids miss school. We're also partnering with some community health clinics where parents will take their children for primary or dental care, and we have a specially trained child and adolescent therapist in those sites. We've also partnered with the East Helena School District to create a school clinic that combines all of those partners together and makes for quick access. And we're partnering with our local hospital here at St. Peter's Health to have a child and adolescent trained mental health therapist on the pediatric unit for those kids who are placed there because of psychiatric crisis and are in need of acute care. So we're trying to provide integrated behavioral health and partner with other providers that are like-minded that will create more opportunities and more points of access for kids and families.
You know, and you mentioned stigma
Yes.
when you were talking in that last answer, and I wanted to follow up on that a little bit.
Sure.
What is the stigma issue from your perspective, and how is your organization working to deal with that?
Sure. Well, stigma comes in many forms. Sometimes it comes through media, sometimes it's within a family culture. So, for example, if a family has had a negative experience with mental health, or they have some significant family problems related to mental health or substance use, they might be reluctant to have a youngster screened or to recommend treatment or seek treatment because they could be concerned about the cost, or they might be concerned about having family issues disclosed, and they're already feeling overwhelmed. What we're seeing with teens is hopeful for me, is that they're showing a lot more tolerance and acceptance of each other,
Awesome.
and that gives us a lot of hope. They're integrating and helping each other. But when stigma rises up in an adolescent group, they tend to be very harsh with each other, and social media has just really made that quick access to be able to bully or to harm a child and each other. So I think it's widespread, multifaceted.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank both of you for sharing your perspectives. It's been a great conversation, and thank you both for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank Paige too, and we'll see you all next week. In the meantime, stay fit, stay well, and stay healthy for life with Healthy Living for Life.
Healthy Living for Life is brought to you by Mountain Pacific Quality Health. We'd love to hear from you. If you have suggestions for future programs, visit our website at mpqhf.org or call us at 406-443-4020. You can also catch us on YouTube by visiting our website and clicking on the YouTube icon. Special thanks to Fire Tower Coffee House and Roasters. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions.